Hi, Copic and the Craft Room friends. I am thrilled and delighted to be helping share a new release from Kraftin Kimmie stamps. I have the Happy Hedgehogs stamp set this time, and I went ahead and stamped up 2 card fronts. I added a sentiment right onto one of them, and I did one off to the side on the second one. So I'm going to split those apart, and I usually stamp everything twice when I'm stamping, just so that I have a second one that I can color up at some point. Or if I make a mistake, I have a second one already ready to go that I don't have to get all my stamp gear out a second time. So I will pull one to the front, and what I love about these little guys is they are super simple. So I'm going to get to keep filming here in real time so you guys can see the speed at which these little hedgehog friends color up. When I hit the background, I'm going to speed up a little bit, and then for the second set of hedgehogs, because I'm going to actually color both today, I am going to speed it up as well, and that's because I'm going to use the exact same colors. So the first one I've got on there is an E31, and I'm going to base kind of that whole back round body of the one hedgehog. And then on the second hedgehog, I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually color in the entire hedgehog. So that includes its little face. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to create a slight, it's going to be very slight, but slight variation in color between the 2 hedgehogs. So in a second, you're going to see I'm going to switch gears over on one of the little guys and kind of lighten it up face-wise. So the little one to the right is going to end up being kind of the female buddy, and she is getting a lighter tone on her skin and a little bit peachier. It's an E21. And that's what's going in there. And then I've got a little E93, and I'm adding that onto her cheek. And so we're keeping it really simple because it was so wet. It just kind of blended in right away. I don't need to do anything to it. So then on the quills, these are going to be the same colors on both, but I've jumped to an E35. And I'm doing short little flicks. They're tiny little flicks. I'm doing that with the very tip of my brush nib. They're short. They're maybe 1/8 of an inch long. And I'm going from the front of the body toward the back and kind of rounding them as they go up and over the hump of the little back toward her rear end. And I've focused them in around her little face. So there's a few more flicks kind of clumped together around their little faces. So same on this little guy to the left, E35 still, flicking from the face back. These little short flicks are going to be a little bit tighter together on this hedgehog. Coming in with E25 on the hedgehog to the right, the little girl. So again, focusing in around the face, kind of really framing that out and giving that focal point. And then also coming around the base and a few little flicks on the top, but not quite as many. But trying to give a little bit of roundness to that body. So think of it in terms of a half sphere or ball. So we're giving that rounded shape where it's lighter, kind of in that circular highlight on top. The little guy to the left is going to get more of the E25 because he's going to be a little bit darker overall. So you're going to see when they're sitting side by side that he appears to be a little bit darker. Next, I'm going to start up here in a second on that background. So I've done a background like this in the past. It's fairly simple. I'm going to use 2 greens. I'm actually starting with G20, and then I'm going to come in with a couple YGs. But I'm zigzagging that that medium broad nib, or what a lot of us call the chisel nib. So I'm just going up and down and going in a horizontal manner. It's not going to turn out even. It's going to look more like kind of an uneven grass. Then YG61, I'm using the brush nib again, a little up and down kind of zigzag that goes horizontally. And YG63, I'm focusing that in underneath the hedgehogs to give them that little bit of a shadow, and then a few little up and down flicks, again still with that brush nib for that grassy appearance. The sky is coming in with a BG000. You're going to notice I'm leaving some areas white, and my goal is to kind of leave that in loose cloud-like shapes. And then I come in on the edges of those clouds with colorless blender, and I really soften that up. So I'm doing kind of a circular stroke with that colorless blender right along the edges. I've got a BV20, and I'm coming in on the base of the cloud. And again, I hit it right away this time with that colorless blender. So it was on the wet colorless blender, and then again with wet colorless blender on top. It really softens it down. And then BV23 is going to go underneath my hedgehogs to darken that shadow. Image number 2, I'm going to use the exact same series on these two hedgehogs. This time though, the tummies, because there's so much more showing, I did both of those starting with that E21. The little hedgehog on the left is going to get that E93 for cheeks. And then I've got a little E31. This is going to fill in their entire backs. And it's also going to do a tiny bit of shading on their bodies, because I want to give a little bit of roundness to them. E35 is going to come in and start all of those little quills. Short, little spiky flicks. E25. Here's where I come back in with that E31 and soften up on the bodies. I added a little bit of the BV23 on the pupil of the eye that's open. And then on the leaves, for that little frame they're sitting in, I've got a YG03. And all I'm doing is touching those little leaves. When they're so tiny like this, it's more just touching that marker down. And then I used a YG63 right at the base, and I'm literally adding a dot at the base of most of the leaves. Again, a step you don't necessarily need to take. R21 is going to fill in the flower petals. And the heart. And I used a little R24 just around the edges of the heart and softened with that R21. Even on a small area like this, it's really easy with reds to bleed out. And you're going to notice when you get close and see this image, mine does bleed out a little bit. Keeping the sky inside that wreath or just barely beyond, so it's kind of an oval shape. I felt like that kind of those little branches were already framing them so nicely, so I didn't want to create a bigger shape necessarily, so I'm just trying to soften that edge with the BG000. And that really is going to finish this up. I just want to thank Kim again for letting me be part of this month's release and letting me share the Happy Hedgehogs with all of you. Hope you got some fun information. If nothing else, got to see some fun coloring today. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you have a chance, go ahead and stop by my blog real quick at scrapweaver.com. A couple of my Copic college weekends are just about to sell out, and so if you're thinking about doing one of those, in particular one of those coming up here in the next 4 to 5 months, I would get your seat now. Thanks so much for stopping by, and hope you have a chance to pick up some of the new stamps at Kraftin Kimmie. Have a happy, colorful day.